We gather today to remember how much our world has changed since March of 2020. And we gather to honor 18,000 Kentuckians lost. You know, Evelyn was born just a few weeks before COVID dominated our lives. So I measure this time period through her own growth and development. Started walking about the time we rolled out the COVID vaccine, and I likened her first steps, excited, determined, yet a little wobbly, to Kentucky rebounding from a once in a lifetime pandemic. I remember when we planted the flags on the Capitol lawn to honor those we lost to this unrelenting disease. And looking at the thousands of flags around the Capitol would break your heart because each one of those represented a mother, a father, or son or daughter, or a coworker or friend. But when I look at this memorial today, what I see is beauty and hope. Through tragedy that no one could have ever imagined, Kentucky showed the world what it looked like to come together. COVID reminded us to acknowledge everyday heroes like those in healthcare, our teachers, and our first responders. And the Team Kentucky spirit that the governor speaks about was born. And my reminder to give each other grace still rings true today. So may this memorial remind us to continue honoring the work of our heroes and maintaining that spirit of gratitude, teamwork, and grace. To open us in prayer is Bishop Kevin McCraney from the City of Refuge Ministry in Louisville.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to ask in the old tradition if everyone would stand who can as we go before the Lord in prayer. O Lord, our God, as we gather here today, we give you thanks and we praise you for your greatness. We take this time to acknowledge that your will is sovereign. Your works are wondrous. Your mercy enduring, your grace sufficient, and your love never failing. On this day and at this memorial dedication service, we thank you for the lives of fathers and mothers, of husbands and wives, of sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts, nieces and nephews, cousins and friends. Help us to caress their memories in our heart as we honor them today. We are grateful for the gift that is life and the promise that you will wipe every tear from our eyes. In your mercy, turn the darkness of death into a day of new life and the sorrow of parting into the joy of heaven. Through our Savior, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
When my way grows dreary, precious Lord, linger near with my life. Is almost gone. Hear my cry. Hear my call. Hold my head, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me
Take my hand. Take my hand. Take my hand. Precious Lord, lead me
Such beautiful voices. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to thank the governor for allowing me to be a part of this remarkable memorial that we are here to celebrate today. I cannot express how much that has helped me to move forward in my life after the loss of Gary Woodward, my husband of 45 years. I know him very well, and I know he would say, I'm overjoyed and I'm humbled by this memorial. I also know he would say, I was just doing my job of caring for others. He will forever be my healthcare hero. Fellow Kentuckians, we stand here today in awe of this beautiful, beautiful memorial to honor the over 18,000 Kentuckians that we miss every day of our life. I will forever have a bond with the families of each of those individuals, one that will never be broken. Amanda Matthews, I commend you and your team. You have captured the essence of what are truly our loved ones. We know them well, but we want you to know them as well. I thank you for filling my heart with warmth today because it truly is overflowing. Grief is strange. I can't plan it, and I certainly can't control it. There is no way to truly prepare for the grief that we have experienced. However, the COVID memorial brings me joy because I know that my loved one will never be forgotten. This memorial and Martha Greenwald's book, Who We Lost, are both elements that are the legacy that our loved ones will continue for generations to come. The journey over the days ahead allow each of us to share the legacy of our loved one, speaking kindness, serving others, and viewing with a wide lens because we never know the struggles that someone is going through and the difference we can make in their life. So be the light, just like the COVID memorial, as we celebrate the lives of those who gave their all. I'm reminded in Psalms 1:9, I will give thanks unto the Lord with my whole heart, even when there is a void. So I thank you, and I pray that God will bless each of you every day, and that we will always continue to remember the families of those who lost their loved ones and their friends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me be here this afternoon. It's been a tumultuous few years here within the Commonwealth. We have lost so many, and there's no one who is here today that hasn't been affected in one way, shape, or form from this pandemic. Whether we have someone that we lost, someone that was debilitated, we have family members that have been affected, our children have been affected. And I don't think that you can get past that, but you can begin to heal from it. But the other thing I think this memorial represents is some of the best of who we can be. If you look across the Commonwealth, you saw healthcare organizations that would often compete come together in an unprecedented manner. And we shared information, we shared our bed situations at times, we moved patients where we could provide the best overall care for them without a concern of what it meant to any of the organizations. We did that in the face of an unknown pandemic, but with complete and utter support from the state agencies that helped us do that. They provided us with the ability to deliver vaccines and to deliver care and to move patients around during a time where we didn't really know what was going to happen. So for that, I say thank you. I say thank you for that unwavering support from these wonderful people. I say thank you to the friends I have made across this Commonwealth and different healthcare organizations and academic institutions. And I say thank you to all the departments and cabinets that did what they did for us during that time. And I think I also need to say thank you for the people I'm actually here representing today. And that's every single person who was a healthcare worker or worked in an office or worked in a hospital during this time. If you think back to the early parts of the pandemic, there were times where we thought 1 in 10 people who were going to be exposed to COVID were going to die from this disease. And yet, day in and day out, the people would show up at the hospital and offices knowing that we didn't know anything about how to treat this. You may die from doing it, and yet we never had a problem getting people to come and take care of the people that were affected. We were learning how to deal with the disease. We were learning how to treat these patients, but we were there. The EMS providers were there when they would go to houses and not know what they would be faced with. They wouldn't know who may or may not be affected, but they would walk into that house. The nurses who were having to deal with unprecedented amounts of patients coming through our healthcare organizations and being apart from them and trying to be a surrogate for family members who could not sit next to those patients during that time. They showed up. And the physicians who were trying to figure out how we could do what we can do to mitigate these circumstances, learn how to treat this disease till we can get it to what we see today, where you are more likely to not even require hospitalization if you're exposed to COVID. We were able to employ a medical miracle in the vaccine and the procurement of that vaccine in such a short period of time. And we were able to do it on a scale within this Commonwealth that is literally unprecedented in the history of what we have done. So I say thank you. Let this memorial be not just for those we lost. Let it be for what we can be, and let it be for all of those that stood up and said, I can do this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We are here today to dedicate this meaningful memorial to the victims of COVID-19 in the Commonwealth and to their families. We also dedicate it in honor of those healthcare heroes, as well as the compassion, the dedication, and the sacrifice of every Kentuckian while we fought this battle. This hallowed space is called the State Capitol Monument Park. It is a place of prominence. Here you'll find the Gold Star Family's monument. I was proud to dedicate that in 2020. It pays tribute to the nearly 10,000 Kentuckians who paid the ultimate sacrifice during service to our country since the start of World War II, and it honors their families. We are forever grateful for those who serve and sacrifice for our freedoms. This park includes a monument dedicated to honoring freedom and a monument dedicated to honoring the prisoners of war and those missing in action during the Vietnam War. Here we also remember our great veterans, as well as those who chose to give life through organ and tissue donations. Generations of Kentuckians will come to this area of the Capitol to learn about our heroes, as well as reflect on the many great challenges that we face together, including the once in every 100 years pandemic. I was elected as governor in 2019, and when I came in December of 2019, I knew the job would be difficult. But I don't think anyone could have predicted a pandemic would shake the entire world in just a few short months. I know nothing had prepared me to see those initial estimates of the amount of our fellow Kentuckians that we thought that we would lose to COVID illness and deaths, and what the Commonwealth would suffer. Much worse outcomes than we ended up seeing, thanks to the incredible work of our healthcare heroes. In fact, the first glimpse of hope that I had during this pandemic was how many people went into the hospital that we didn't think would come out. And you remember the videos of every single one, I hope. The celebrations, how each and every person working in that hospital, that nursing home, that facility was so excited because in that one instance we were defeating this terrible virus. On March 6, 2020, we recorded our first case of COVID in the Commonwealth. I still remember what that day felt like. Now, it was a beautiful afternoon. It was a little bit warmer than it certainly is in March And I remember walking home from the Capitol thinking the day was close to done when I got that call. Commonwealth, but the world, we have to admit it changed it in some ways forever. But in a matter of a few short hours, we were fully immersed in the fight, the battle, the war of our lifetime. The weeks, months, and years that followed would be filled with great challenges. But I believe there are two legacies to this pandemic, and one is loss. In a little more than 3 years, this evil virus caused the deaths of more than 1.1 million Americans. That includes a devastating 18,653 Kentuckians. Almost instantly, COVID became the third leading cause of death, even giving cancer and heart disease a run for their money. And it likely will be the case for a third straight year. COVID's dark shadow touched all of our lives and it spared no one. I was thinking the other day, I was thinking in my mind, envision that person that you lost in the pandemic. Except for me, and most likely for you, that one person became two, became three, became five, became 10 very, very quickly. And while we were suffering through a loss that is going to be hard for us to process, you don't lose more people in the span of 3 years than you've lost in World War I, World War II, the Vietnam and Korean Wars put together, and it not have a long lasting impact on us as a people. But like Dr. Smith said, while we were going through the worst of darkness, we saw the brightest of lights. We saw our healthcare heroes, doctors, nurses, everybody that works in any of those facilities showing more courage than most of us could have imagined. I remember standing up with Dr. Stephen Stack. Let's give him a big round of applause for his leadership. You got to stand up. I remember standing with him when asked about PPE, when asked about how much and what we had to protect those hardworking healthcare heroes. And the answer is we didn't have nearly enough. And when we were asked, doesn't that put those nurses, doctors, everyone in danger? The answer was yes. Yet they went in every day. I still think about those individuals walking into a COVID wing when not only what they were doing could end their lives, but they could take it home to their family. That is a level of courage, of service, of sacrifice, of selflessness, of living out faith in values in an incredible way. And they, I think, gave us the hope that if they were strong enough to push through, to put themselves on the line, then we could make all of the sacrifices that we were being asked to make. And I want to echo what Dr. Smith said about our healthcare organizations and our hospitals. I would have to call on a regular basis and ask our hospitals to do things that would have been crazy outside of a pandemic, that almost every day or every week put their bottom line and future existence at risk. And they said yes every time. They stepped up. They provided resources. They answered the call. They were flexible at a moment's notice. And yes, they worked together in ways that we had never seen before. And one of the legacies coming out of it is how they continue, I believe, to work together better than at any time in my lifetime. They were asked as individuals and as organizations to step up, and they did an amazing job. Let's get a big round of applause for all of our hospital systems, and all their workers. And when we think about the risk they put themselves in, we did lose a lot of healthcare workers. It was in September of 2020 when Dr. Stack told me we lost Dr. Rebecca Shadowin, an infectious disease expert who was helping to lead anti-COVID efforts in Warren County. Dr. Shadowin's death was a stark reminder of the sacrifices and danger that our healthcare heroes faced. Sadly, there were more losses in the healthcare profession. Dr. Muhammad Jawad of Bluegrass Medical Center in Corbin in October of 2020. Dr. Don Miller of Bowling Green's Med Center Health in December of 2022. Dr. J. David Doc Richardson, a noted U of L trauma surgeon of COVID-19 related pneumonia in September of 2021. There were others, and we must never forget how these folks put their lives on the line in emergency rooms, COVID wings, nursing homes, you name it, as they filled up, as more disease than we could ever imagine came through those doors. They kept showing up, getting better results every single day, working harder than ever before, learning how to address and treat a virus that we had never seen. They not only showed courage by putting their own lives on the line, they showed what an incredible job that they do and how blessed we are to live in a world that has this level of healthcare. I want to thank all of them, including our local public health leaders in every county, those local health departments led by their leaders, but also leaders throughout our hospital systems and others. I want to thank them. I want to thank them for their communication to their community each and every day, for being able to make it personal and individual in those communities because everyone was at risk. Our doctors and nurses are only part of the story. We lost others on the front lines of fighting this disease: police officers, firefighters, EMTs, and other public safety officials who were helping to keep our world safe while we were being healthy at home. Among those losses was Zonetown Fire Chief Robert Orkes, who died in December of 2020 while contracting COVID while he was also battling lung cancer. Sadly, just months later, in February 2021, that same department lost a second individual, Battalion Major and Acting Chief Gary Key. They went through two losses of their leader during a very short period of time. We lost Breckinridge County Sheriff's Deputy Wagner Baskett Jr., who died in May of 2021 from complications with COVID after contracting the illness in the line of duty. We lost Floyd County Sheriff's Deputy Oliver Little, who died in October of 2021 after contracting COVID again in the line of duty. And we lost London Police Officer Travis Hurley, January 2022, after contracting the virus in the line of duty. Just a few of these names show how serious this virus was, but also the heroic actions of so many Kentuckians doing what it took to keep us safe, sacrificing themselves and sometimes even their lives for the good of this state, of this country, and of the world. And our great educators and staff were there for us too, doing what they always do, caring for all of Kentucky's children with love and compassion. Our educators showed their patience, their resourcefulness, and their innovation as classes to virtual to back again. My administration prioritized teachers becoming the first state to put them in that very first group to get those vaccines. We were one of the first states to have every single school system back in person and to do it safely for those educators. And I've got to say a very special thank you to my partner, Brittany Beshear. Through her First Lady's Coverings for Kids, they provided millions of face masks and other PPE to schools all throughout the Commonwealth. Brittany, what you did then, and for survivors of tornadoes and floods, always being there, not just for our kids, but all the children of the Commonwealth, is inspiring and very special. Thank you. In the midst of this pandemic, we did things that the Commonwealth, I think no state had ever done. We put together what ended up being the national model for drive-through testing. One of the largest logistics challenges we've ever seen. We started this battle without even a test for this virus. We got to the point where we were able to test people safely as they came through, and now you can get one of these tests at just about any drugstore across America. We had partners like Kroger, U of L Health, Norton, all of our hospitals that are here, Pikeville Medical Center, and what they did to make sure that anybody who needed one of those tests could get them. But then came the life-saving vaccines. Yes, they are a modern medical miracle, but they are also a gift from God. Never has a vaccine come that quickly. Never has a vaccine been that effective. We were told in the beginning that it would be years maybe even a decade before we might see a vaccine. And we'd hoped that it would be about a third or a half as effective as it turned out to be. To everyone who helped us in what turned out to be the largest logistics challenge since World War II. Think about how many billions of people we've vaccinated around the world in a few short years. I still remember the day when we were waiting for vaccines, the very first package to arrive, where Jason Smith would become the first Kentuckian to be vaccinated. We're sitting out on the loading dock because we were that excited. And the UPS truck pulled up. This is Kentucky. It had to be a UPS truck. And we all started cheering. It was the wrong UPS truck. But it did make us appreciate them. And that driver wondered what was going on. But just to see that employee that day get out beaming, wouldn't let anybody else touch it. This was his job. And ensure that it got to its destination safely. You could tell what it meant to him to be a part of the battle against this virus, and how it got out, how we were able to vaccinate those willing, still more in a short period of time than we have ever seen, and how it immediately made a huge impact. Now, leading up to those vaccines, so many of our older Kentuckians were in danger every single day. And within just months, we saw what a miracle from God and a modern medical miracle could do for our people. And I want to take a minute to talk about one very essential worker who helped so many Kentuckians, it's going to be hard, get through the crisis. She did it while teaching all of us so many lessons about leading with love and inclusion and togetherness. Virginia Moore is an amazing Kentuckian, an incredible public servant. Virginia was the director of the Kentucky Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and a fierce, compassionate advocate for her community. After the very first COVID briefing we did on March the 6th, I got a call from Virginia. And when you got a call from Virginia, you listened. And Virginia said, you need an ASL interpreter at every single one of these briefings. And I said what I always said to Virginia, yes, ma'am. From the moment COVID hit the Commonwealth, she stood right next to me and a Dr. Stack every single day, going many, many months between bringing Rachel and Rachel in. Thank you all for being a part of our team. To make sure that everyone could get the information that they needed. And what she did has caused so much good throughout the United States. Within a week, you started seeing ASL interpreters in other states. Within a month, you saw them everywhere, every single government announcement, anywhere across the United States. Virginia Moore is responsible for making that happen. In the process, she became a beloved fixture during our daily briefings in times where we were scared, teaching us sign language and inclusion, bringing kids in and exposing them to how they could communicate with everybody that was out there, giving us just a moment to breathe, to learn something together, to spend that communal moment, knowing that we were doing this because there was a future in front of us. Unfortunately, Virginia passed away just weeks ago on the Kentucky Derby day, I might add. Virginia always liked to make a splash. She's the only person I know with not one but two bobbleheads because she didn't like the first one. But a number of Kentuckians, you know what? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Kentuckians that are alive today because of Virginia Moore. What a legacy she leaves for all of us. In the end, we all lost somebody to COVID. I can think of about 20 people. That's where my list got last night. All incredible individuals, all taken too soon. And in addition to the thousands of deaths, more than 1.5 million Kentuckians who got COVID faced weeks or months of illness, sometimes with slow recoveries. While we've managed to get through so much adversity, pain and loss, this scale is something that we're going to be living with and processing for years to come. That's why we made the decision to build this memorial, because I wanted everyone who has lost someone to this virus to know that their loved one is important and they are missed, and that we in Kentucky will not bow to politics. We will recognize the loss that we have been through. We will recognize the sacrifices that were made, and we will provide a place and a safe place for everyone to be able to come to grieve, to remember, and hopefully to process it in a way that helps them move forward. This memorial stands for more than 18,600 Kentuckians, every one a child of God, missed by their communities and by their families. But as you look at this memorial, you also see the helpers. You see that sacrifice of those healthcare heroes, but it's more than that. This was the first war in my lifetime where it took everybody doing their best, sacrificing for each other, putting off things that I know that people wanted to do because it protected the people around them. When I meet with children in the Capitol and they ask me about COVID, I thank them because they had to make sacrifices too. A pandemic of this scale, yes, is going to have impacts, whether that's on learning or other areas. But what we too often forget is that even our kids willingly made the decision to help one another, to save people's lives, to live out the golden rule that we love our neighbors as ourselves, in the parable, the Good Samaritan, that says everyone is our neighbor, no ifs, ands, or buts. So I hope that all Kentuckians can come to this memorial and to see what they did to help us to get through this and to get through it together. It honors our hospitals. It honors, if you'll bear with me, even our bourbon distillers. Because thanks to them, we were the one state that never lacked hand sanitizer, and some of it smelled delicious. It recognizes great partners like Kroger and Gravity Diagnostics, a lab, because we didn't have the big national labs that others did that was working 24 hours a day to increase capacity. It represents all the workers at UPS Worldport in Louisville that helped get those vaccines, not just here, but I think the statistic is 60+% of all vaccines going anywhere in the world came through Louisville, Kentucky. The title of this memorial is United We Stand, Divided We Fall, which is also our state motto. In a moment, we'll have the honor of hearing from the artist who created this amazing work, Amanda Matthews. Amanda is a celebrated artist and an 8th-generation Kentuckian who still calls the Commonwealth home. Amanda lived through this with us. She's highly regarded, and her work is in public spaces and beyond. In fact, last November, I had the honor of helping Amanda unveil her stunning statue of pioneering Kentucky educator Nettie Depp, our first statue of a woman in the Kentucky Capitol. Thank you for that work. I want to thank Amanda for her artistry and care in this phenomenal memorial. I also want to thank the Memorial Advisory Panel. That included healthcare heroes, family members who lost loved ones, and COVID-19 survivors. They helped select the finalists. And then we got to thank our many donors that made this happen. And most of our donors are healthcare organizations that live this out every single day and wanted to be able to bring, I think, their employees and families and friends, and to show them how grateful we are that they were on the front lines of the war of our lifetime. Among the major donors are Baptist Health, King's Daughter Health System, Norton Healthcare, Pikeville Medical Center, St. Elizabeth Healthcare, the University of Kentucky, U of L Health, along with many private donors. Let's give them a big round of applause. And as we dedicate this memorial, it's hard not to think about how far we've come and about how we will never take certain things for granted again. Just being able to hug your fellow human being, being able to go to a restaurant with your family, making those memories, because COVID reminds us that life is fleeting and short, and you can lose someone in an instant. And I believe we as a people just more united despite everything out there based on what we have been through. But I think we are more grateful for all of the moments that we have. We began today's ceremony with bells, which Candy began ringing every day at 10 a.m. in our of the lost. We also began to light the Capitol green, the color of compassion. Kentuckians joined us everywhere, and on nights that I struggled, I get in the car and drive around and see green lights all throughout this town and so many others. Among the innovated into this installation are green lights that encircle the monument. In this way, we can collectively honor the lost every day, every month, and in the years and decades to come. My faith tells me that grief and sorrow are unavoidable parts of life and that losing people is supposed to hurt. Scripture tells us the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. My faith also tells me that while the body is mortal, the soul is eternal, and we will see each of these 18,600 plus loved ones again. This, yeah. This memorial is dedicated to those we lost, to our heroes during the pandemic, and the sacrifice and hard work of every single Kentuckian. But again, we can honor Virginia through doing this, helped us get through this, and helped us get through this together. Thank you all, and let me introduce you to Amanda, our incredible sculptor.
It is such an honor to be here today, and it is such an honor that each of you are here as well. Thank you so much to the governor, First Lady, Lieutenant Governor, to each of the other speakers and the healthcare industry, to everyone is here. I wanted to share with you something that I wrote about the concept behind this memorial, which I think will help you better understand how I moved through this along with all of the other Kentuckians. The COVID-19 pandemic interrupted our entire world, introducing unexpected illness, grief, and insecurity to our families and friends. It pulled many of us into the depths of despair and isolation, rendering bare the reality that every person is susceptible. It also gave us a glimpse of how our communities can hold each other up in times of great challenge. It showed us the grit, determination, and innovation of our medical and scientific communities and frontline workers, as well as the compassion and altruism of all types of caregivers across our great Commonwealth. This is a story lived in our time that will be shared with future generations and will be told by us and in part by this memorial monument. Great stories like great art stand the test of time. Both encapsulate important moments in history and convey something remarkable: beauty, love, tragedy, unity, prophecy. They deliver something of great importance to current and future generations. The Kentucky COVID Memorial Monument reflects the ideals, visual symbols, and embodiment of the phrase, "United we stand, divided we fall." The oldest known use of this phrase was traced to the Greek storyteller Aesop in the 6th century BC, the four oxen and the lion, an Aesop fable. A lion used to prowl about in a field in which four oxen used to dwell. Many a time he tried to attack them, but whenever he came near, they turned their tails to one another, so that whichever way he approached them, he was met by the horns of one of them. At last, however, they fell quarreling amongst themselves, and each went off to pasture alone in a separate corner of the field. Then the lion attacked them one by one and soon made an end of all four. United we stand, divided we fall. Hundreds of years later, in the 1st century AD, a similar phrase appeared in the biblical New Testament.
translated into English from historic Greek in Mark 3:25. indescribable grief and despair at the loss of our loved ones, relatives, and friends who left us far too soon. During the time of COVID, Governor Andy Beshear asked us to ring bells so those feeling alone know that we're with them. The sound of ringing bells has long been connected to the spiritual world as a way in which angels communicate with us here in the earthly realm. To honor this, a small bell resides inside each open space in the chest of the figures, allowing the wind to create a beautiful dialogue between our departed loved ones and those of us who are still here. Our governor also asked us to turn on green lights to show compassion for those we have lost. The center of the memorial will glow green in the evening, while the white lights help guide us through the darkest part of the night until the sun comes up the next morning. Over and over, we are reminded of the undeniable power of our state motto. Its many iterations have crossed multiple generations and beliefs to stand the test of time. It relays a diametric message of possibilities, tragedy, or love. Together, let us embrace a spirit of oneness, of family, as we honor all Kentuckians and reflect on the great motto of our Commonwealth. United we stand, divided we fall.
As we gather just a few short days before Memorial Day, I would ask the governor and his staff's permission to please invite all of you who are active military, all of you who are former military, all of you who are married or have significant others in the military, children serving in the military, and all of you who are proud veterans to begin this invocation by please rising as you are so able. And as the invocation proceeds, I'll invite all of us to rise. If you'd please stand if you are active or former military or married or have family in it. I bring with me my father, Dr. Jonathan Wirtschafter's dog tags. He was a reservist. His father before him, Dr. Zoltan Wirtschafter, served in the Air Force during World War II. The World War I veteran, poet, playwright, and essayist Archibald MacLeish wrote the following poem to memorialize those who gave their lives defending our allies and our ideals. He wrote, "The young soldiers do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, we were young. We have died. Remember us. But we could, but until it is finished, it is not done. They say, we have given our lives, but until it is finished, no one can give. They say, our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, our deaths were for peace and a new hope or for nothing. We cannot say. It is you who must say this. They say, we leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were young, they say. We have died. Remember us. I would now ask all who are able to please join those who are standing. In keeping with MacLeish's powerful ode, Ms. challenges us to answer the question,
What will these COVID deaths mean? Whether they are to us. Imagine a reworking of McLeish's poem, informed by this sculpture and by Martha Greenwald's book, Those We've Lost. Perhaps it would sound something like this. The casualties of COVID do not speak. Nevertheless, they are heard in the still houses. Who has not heard them? They have a silence that speaks for them at night and when the clock counts. They say, we were your fellow Kentuckians, your neighbors, your countrymen, your coworkers, your family, your friends. We have died. They say, we weren't allowed to finish our lives. COVID finished them. They say, we lost our lives, but who will bear witness to those who were lost? They say, our deaths are not ours, they are yours. They will mean what you make them. They say, whether our lives and our deaths will lead to real change and a new hope or for nothing, we cannot say. It is you who must say this. They say, we leave you our deaths. Give them their meaning. We were your fellow Kentuckians, your neighbors, your countrymen, your friends, your co-workers, your family. We have died, they say. Remember us. God of love and loss, life and death, hope and heartbreak, guide our deeply divided state in the sacred cause of reclaiming our sense of common humanity. Teach us to overcome the anger, fear, hatred, and recklessness that all too often made the hospitalizations and deaths higher than they had to be. Remind us that denial can never cure disease and that distortions can never change facts. Help us to make healthcare a human right, something all people deserve by virtue of being human. Move us to make meaning of these deaths by making the next virus less deadly. Source of consolation. Strengthen our efforts to console those who are living with the burden of loss. Source of inspiration. Lead us to honor the meaning of these deaths by leading more meaningful lives. And whenever we look upon this masterful work of art, let us rededicate ourselves to the work it calls upon us to do. May this be our blessing, and let us say together, Amen.
Praise